The alarm goes off, and you drag yourself out of bed, still sleepy-eyed. You head for the kitchen to start brewing your coffee. For most people, it's hard to imagine a day without Java. Let's face it, the caffeine perks you up, the taste is great, and there's something incredibly soothing about sipping this steamy cup of brew. But is drinking coffee really good for you? Well, the answer is yes and no. So in today's video, I'm going to clear up the confusion over this double-edged sword of the good and the bad about coffee, especially for peripheral neuropathy sufferers. In part 1, I'll explain the health benefits of coffee. Then in part 2, I'll go over the dangerous pitfalls. And in part 3, I'll go over how you can avoid the negative effects of coffee. Don't go anywhere. It's gonna be good. Hello, Health Explorer. It's Dr. Coppola, the Nerve Doctor. If you've been told your neuropathy is permanent, I'm here to help you achieve new levels of health you've never dreamed possible. All right, now let's get started. According to the National Coffee Association, more than 62% of Americans drink coffee every single day, averaging 3 or more cups a day. And worldwide, coffee is the second most consumed beverage in many nations. But to date, there still remains an enormous amount of confusion over whether or not drinking coffee provides you with health benefits or is it wrecking your health. The fact is that coffee can be partly good and partly bad. There are well-documented studies showing certain health benefits with drinking coffee. But the real question is, when do the benefits turn harmful for peripheral neuropathy sufferers and others for that matter? Well, let's examine both sides of the coin to better understand it. Part 1, the health benefits of coffee. Now, drinking coffee in moderation can provide health benefits, but the key is moderation. So let me define what that is. When it comes to drinking coffee, clinical studies have found that health benefits are associated with drinking no more than 400 milligrams of caffeine daily. Now, many reports will define this as 4 to 5 cups per day, but that can vary widely based on the type of coffee. The amount of caffeine contained in coffee will be dependent on a few things, including the type of coffee bean. Certain coffee beans naturally contain higher values of caffeine. For instance, Robusta coffee beans have the highest caffeine levels at 2.9 milligrams per bean, while Arabica beans contain 1.9 milligrams of caffeine per bean. Now, caffeine can also vary with the roasted method. How the beans are roasted will affect both the strength and the caffeine levels of coffee. Light roasts have higher caffeine content, while dark roasts have a lower caffeine content. Also, the brewing method. The amount of caffeine will differ based on how you brew your coffee, whether you use the pour-over method, drip brewing, French press, or AeroPress method. Also, the size of the coffee grinds and the amount used will have an impact. The finer the grind and the more coffee grinds you use, there will be more or higher levels of caffeine. Now, research has shown that if you consume 400 milligrams or less of caffeine daily, you may receive the following benefits of caffeine: improved mood, increased attention and alertness, increased energy. It may reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. It may protect against heart disease and diabetes, and it may even protect your liver. It may reduce liver and colorectal cancer. It may help reduce multiple sclerosis and boost metabolism and fat burning. And on top of that, it can actually enhance exercise performance. Now, for coffee lovers out there, I'm sure you're breathing a sigh of relief. But remember, this is only part of the story. Now, let's look at the negative impact coffee can have on your body, especially for peripheral neuropathy sufferers. Okay, on to part 2, coffee, the dark side. Drinking several cups of caffeine daily, totaling more than 400 milligrams of caffeine, can cause a significant amount of negative effects on the body. So the first question you should be asking me is, Doc, can you just tell me how many cups can I drink before I hit the 400 mark? However, the answer isn't as simple as saying, hey, you can drink 3, 4, or 5 cups daily. And here's why. Remember, I said before that the level of caffeine per cup can vary based on the type of coffee, the roasting method, and the brewing method. Also, the size of the grinds. Well, this can create a large variation in the amount of caffeine per 8-ounce cup. Let me give you an example. An average 12-ounce cup of brewed coffee will contain at least 143 milligrams of caffeine. However, coffee brands like Death Wish, Black Rifle, Biohazard can boost a whopping 702 up to 928 milligrams of caffeine. But wait, it gets even crazier. Devil Mountain Coffee has a black label variety that touts itself as being the strongest coffee in the world, and it boasts at containing 1,555 milligrams of caffeine in a 12-ounce cup. Now that's insane! Now, clearly you can see the number of cups will vary to get to 400 milligrams. If you're drinking something like Folgers coffee, it has 160 milligrams per 12-ounce cup. So you'd want to stop at 3 or 4 cups a day. Now, that's assuming you're using a 12-ounce cup and not a 16-ounce cup. So if you want to know specifically the amount of caffeine in coffee that you're drinking, you can most likely Google it or call the coffee manufacturer. Their number will be listed on the back of the coffee bag or the can. So why is it even important to know how much caffeine you're consuming? Well, consuming more than 400 milligrams of caffeine daily has the most definite impact on your body, and especially for peripheral neuropathy sufferers. So let's take a look at what those are. For example, number 1, caffeine can irritate peripheral nerves and make neuropathy symptoms worse. Caffeine has been shown in studies to reduce adenosine in the brain. This can reduce blood flow to the peripheral nerves and result in loss of nutrients to these nerves. This ultimately will lead to peripheral nerve damage. Number 2, coffee is highly acidic with a pH ranging from 4.85 to 5.10. The acidity in coffee raises inflammation within the body and can contribute to nerve degeneration or damage, as well as prevent some nerve regeneration or regrowth. So consuming multiple cups of coffee daily can certainly slow down your body's ability to heal peripheral nerves. Number 3, caffeine acts as a diuretic and increases urination. This results in a loss of B vitamins including B1, B6, B12, folate, vitamin C, along with valuable minerals needed for healthy nerve function. Research has also shown that high levels of caffeine can also block the absorption of vitamin B1 and vitamin D. All of this can result in nerve degeneration and abnormal nerve function, which will be evident by increased neuropathy symptoms. On to number 4. I need to mention that coffee contains an enormous amount of pesticides sprayed on the crops. So when you're drinking your cup of Java, you're also consuming a ton of pesticides used on the crops. Hundreds of research studies have shown that these chemicals are neurotoxins. They can build up in your system and over time cause damage to the peripheral nerves, as well as cause autoimmune disorders, cancer, and many other diseases. Okay. Here's another one, number 5. Drinking coffee can stress or fatigue your adrenal glands. Now, adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys, and their function is to release hormones that help us adapt to our environment. And they trigger the fight or flight response when we're confronted with a stressful situation. Each time you drink a cup of coffee, your brain sends messages to activate the adrenals to produce more adrenaline and cortisol. These are the stress-adapting hormones. Now, if your adrenal glands experience a heavy stimulation of caffeine, which will happen when you drink several cups of coffee every day for years, well, that weakens the adrenal gland system and can result in a condition called adrenal fatigue. Once you're in adrenal fatigue, coffee drinkers will find that their coffee has less and less effect on raising their energy levels, causing them to consume increasingly more caffeine with time. This perpetuates a vicious cycle. Now, some of the symptoms associated with adrenal fatigue include chronic fatigue with crashes throughout the day, difficulty waking in the morning and actually getting yourself moving, brain fog, poor memory, irritability and mood swings, compromised immune system, and there are many other negative effects associated with too much caffeine consumption that I won't even cover in this video. However, there is one that's unrelated to peripheral neuropathy, but it's so prevalent that I thought it was worth mentioning. And that is caffeine's effect on the bladder and the prostate. Caffeine can irritate the bladder in both men and women, and it can irritate the prostate in men. A study found that men who consumed 234 milligrams or more of caffeine each day were 72% more likely to experience urinary incontinence. Caffeine has also been shown to worsen prostatitis or symptoms of benign prostatic hypertrophy. And if that's not bad enough, it can also worsen symptoms of urinary tract infections, intestinal cystitis, and it can increase the chronicity of bladder infections and urinary incontinence in women. Alrighty, moving on to part number 3, reducing caffeine and the negative impacts without giving up your Java. Tip number 1, stay away from those insane caffeine pumped up coffees like Death Wish, Biohazard, Black Rifle, and Devil's Mountain. Okay, tip number 2, switch to decaffeinated coffee. Now, there's something you need to know about decaffeinated coffees. There's 4 different methods of decaffeination. Now, the 2 most common methods utilize a highly toxic chemical called methylene chloride. This is an active ingredient in paint strippers of all things that's recently been banned by the Environmental Protection Agency. However, the FDA currently allows methylene chloride to be used in coffee decaffeination process. And what's worse is that coffee companies aren't even required to disclose the decaffeination process on their label. So here's an instance where you definitely want to place a phone call to the company. Now, there's 2 safe decaffeination methods. The first one is called supercritical carbon dioxide decaffeination, or SCO2 for short. And the other method is called the Swiss water process. Now, these are the 2 of the most natural methods that do not use any chemicals for extracting caffeine. Okay, tip number 3, only drink organic coffee. This will prevent you from consuming the pesticides that are heavily sprayed on coffee crops. Tip number 4, drink Javaco. This is a recipe that Dr. Montero and I created where you add both ghee, which is clarified butter, along with coconut oil to your coffee. Both of these oils have a plethora of health benefits, from better brain function to increased energy and much more. But when you add these 2 ingredients to your coffee, you also reduce the acidity of the coffee. And since both ghee and coconut oil have anti-inflammatory properties, it can help reduce systemic inflammation and some of its damaging effects on your peripheral nerves, along with improving intestinal health. So, my fellow coffee aficionados, you can breathe a sigh of relief because you don't have to give up your coffee. But you do need to be smart about it, about how you consume it and how much you're drinking. Just incorporate these suggestions so you're not adding more fuel to the fire for your nerve health. Well, that's it for now, Health Explorers. If you want to learn more about decreasing inflammation, watch our video, Squelching Inflammation. I'll put a link at the end of this video. If you're enjoying our videos, the best way you can support us is by liking this video and sharing it with others. Until next time, my friends, I look forward to seeing you on the road to great nerve health. Now that's insane. Wouldn't you agree? That's insane? Isn't it insane? Make sure you watch my video, Coffee.
Coffee, coffee, coffee.
Make sure you watch my video, Coffee.